At long last, it's the end of an era for Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Swift was originally supposed to play just 52 shows in the US for the entire tour, but instead, she more than tripled her shows and took the Eras Tour international, playing 152 shows across 5 continents, with 62 concerts in the United States and 90 shows abroad. Whether you like her music or not, you gotta appreciate the run Swift had on the Eras Tour. Each of her shows lasted 3.5 hours, with 44 songs and multiple costume changes. Her fans also brought earthquake-level energy to every show. No, I mean it. Literally. Her fans shook the ground so hard in Seattle that it registered the same level of impact as a 2.3 magnitude earthquake. Stars and celebrities also came out in droves to watch Swift perform throughout the tour, from Tom Brady and JJ Watt to Tom Cruise, Bradley Cooper, Prince Williams, Caitlin Clark, Julia Roberts, Reese Witherspoon, and countless others. Rumor has it that 3-time Super Bowl champion Travis Kelce also made it out to a few shows, and even brought his entire family on a few occasions. I guess you could say he's a pretty big fan. I wonder why. All jokes aside, the economic impact of the Eras Tour made history and is still being felt today. Cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, London, and Sydney collectively generated hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue. And the Eras Tour is the first concert tour in history to surpass $2 billion in total revenue, beating out Coldplay's Music of the Spheres World Tour, Elton John's Farewell Yellow Brick Road Tour, Ed Sheeran's Divide Tour, and U2's 360 Degree Tour. And this $2 billion tour helped Swift become the first billionaire musician in history to make her fortune solely from music. I wonder what Kanye West has to say about that. Swifties also traveled far and spent big to see Swift in action, with the average fan traveling 338 miles and spending $1,600 on average for a single show. That includes money spent on tickets, travel, lodging, merchandise, food, drinks, and of course, friendship bracelets. Put it this way, Eras Tour attendees spent a similar amount of cash to what an NFL fan might pay to attend the Super Bowl, except the Super Bowl only happens once a year, while Taylor Swift played 152 shows over the course of 18 months. Maybe NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is in the wrong business after all. But what's even crazier is that the Eras Tour generated so much economic impact that economists gave the impact its own name, Swiftonomics. And while everyone points to the impact the Eras Tour had on local restaurants, bars, and hotels each time Taylor Swift rolled through town, few people have benefited more from her shows than professional sports team owners. Now, you might be calling BS on me and think that's a stretch, but believe it or not, the data doesn't lie. You see, the Eras Tour held concerts in a dozen stadiums completely owned by sports teams over the last 18 months. These stadiums included international venues like Liverpool's Anfield in the United Kingdom and Real Madrid's Santiago Bernabeu in Spain, and US-based stadiums like Gillette Stadium in Massachusetts, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, and SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. The nightly economics differ on a stadium-by-stadium basis. For example, ticket prices for shows in the United States are typically 20% to 30% higher than shows overseas. However, many international venues are also much bigger than US stadiums, which can equal even more revenue. So, to keep things simple, we'll just use some general numbers to show how much each stadium made for a run of Eras Tour shows. According to an economic breakdown from the Wall Street Journal, the average Eras Tour show generated about $10 million in ticket sales. That number was slightly higher for bigger shows at around $13 million, while smaller shows did about $6 million each night. But show revenue stayed pretty consistent throughout the tour regardless of location because Swift didn't use dynamic pricing on her tickets, meaning ticket prices stayed the same each time a show went on sale, irregardless of the demand. However, this didn't stop the resale market from going bonkers, with many tickets being drastically marked up and resold for thousands of dollars. I'm looking at you, Ticketmaster. Now, Swift didn't just get to keep the $10 million in revenue generated for each show. Every concert has expenses that eat into Swift's profit, including things like labor, transportation, production, staging, and promoter costs. But one of the biggest deductions for Swift is renting out the stadium itself. Based on a $10 million show, each stadium might charge $2 million to $3 million per night. This is a huge moneymaker for a venue that would otherwise be empty. And the best part? Many stadiums hosted multiple nights of the Eras Tour, driving even more revenue for the stadium. For example, Swift performed at Anfield in Liverpool for 3 consecutive nights in June, and she did the same thing at Gillette Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium, and MetLife Stadium. But the even luckier stadiums were the Rogers Center in Toronto and SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, which each hosted 6 nights of shows during the tour. And these stadiums didn't just make money off tickets, they also got a cut of concessions and merchandise sales. So when you add in the $2 million in merchandise sales Swiftie shelled out each night, these stadiums made a ton of money off Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. In total, it's estimated that each venue made anywhere between $3 million to $4 million each night of the Eras Tour. And when you multiply that number by the number of nights each venue hosted a show, Each stadium made about $6 million to $8 million in revenue for 2 nights of concerts to $18 million to $24 million for 6 nights. You could say that's the opposite of a cruel summer. Now, there's no denying that Taylor Swift is a massive outlier. Only a handful of artists in the entire world can sell out an NFL stadium 6 nights in 1 week. Swift also produced a movie version of the Eras Tour for fans who couldn't attend her show in person. The movie was released across 4,000 theaters worldwide and has done over $260 million in box office revenue to date, making it the highest grossing concert film of all time. You may be sitting there saying, okay, these numbers are impressive, but why does this matter to my favorite sports team? Well, the Eras Tour shows how incredibly valuable owning your own stadium can be to a sports franchise. Take SoFi Stadium, for instance. The $5 billion privately funded venue hosts weekly NFL games for its home teams, the Los Angeles Rams and Chargers. And since the venue is arguably the nicest stadium in the world and located in a massive market in Los Angeles, it also gets rented for a bunch of other special events, like the College Football Playoff National Championship Game, WrestleMania, and 19 concerts last year alone, including 6 by Taylor Swift and 3 with Beyonce. Not all of the money these stadiums make from a show is profit, of course. SoFi Stadium has to account for overhead, like staff wages, food and beverage costs, and even its massive electric bill. But the events at SoFi Stadium will generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue for owner Stan Kroenke's sports franchise portfolio, which includes franchises like the Los Angeles Rams, Denver Nuggets, Colorado Avalanche, Colorado Rapids, and Arsenal. The money is even more impressive for small market teams. For example, 2 second division Bundesliga teams, FC Schalke and Hamburger SV, have annual player payrolls of $25 million and $50 million, respectively. However, both of these clubs generated roughly $10 million in revenue each from hosting Taylor Swift shows in the summer of 2024 at their team-owned stadiums, giving each club a massive boost to their bottom lines. So yes, even second division clubs in Germany stand to benefit from owning their own stadiums. You never know when Swifties may come to town. Now, you may look at these numbers and say building financial models of Taylor Swift concerts is unrealistic, and you're not wrong. The Eras Tour was the highest grossing concert tour of all time, and we may never see anything like it again. But with sports media rights facing an uncertain future in the evolving era of streaming, the smartest owners in professional sports have begun to turn their sports teams into real estate assets that can generate massive revenue even when the team isn't on the field. This revenue model includes increasingly popular mixed-use developments with bars, restaurants, and hotels, like the Battery in Atlanta or the Deer District in Milwaukee. But this model also includes the stadiums themselves. The Buffalo Bills can get away with building an open-air stadium because the city's infrastructure is too small to host a Super Bowl or Final Four anyway. But most big city professional sports teams have at least looked into domes because enclosed roofs would allow them to host premier concerts and sporting events throughout the winter. It's this very reason why the Chicago Bears want to get rid of the cold, bare weather advantage of Soldier Field and build an indoor stadium that can host the Super Bowl, the Final Four, the Big Ten Championship, and perhaps even a Taylor Swift show one day. Because at the end of the day, more money in a team's pocket is greater than a cold weather home field advantage. Although, the Bears don't really seem to have a home field advantage right now anyway. But I digress. Many of these stadiums are still funded by taxpayer dollars, but even if a sports team doesn't technically own the venue, they almost always try to find a way to pay some operating costs for the stadium so they can get a cut of the profits generated by other events too. So, in the end, don't just root for your team to sign some big name free agent. Root for them to build and own a new stadium. Then, maybe the next time Taylor Swift goes on tour, your team can reap all the benefits too.